now I'm even seeing that these agents are judging science fairs for these children. These are indoctrinations events. These have absolutely nothing to do with educating, children. And they've been in preschools before in Nogales at a religious, I believe it was a Catholic private school, and they were up until recently, they didn't blur any of these children's faces. They were using it as marketing. It's marketing material is what it is. It has nothing to do with education and being a good steward of the community. That's a bunch of trash.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Border Patrol Watch. I'm Jen Budd, your host. Today I have Mariana Trevino Wright, my co-host, and a special guest that you've probably met before if you follow the show, John Kirk. He's a videographer and a documentarian, I guess you would call him. And he's documented actually the destruction of the border out in Sausa Bay, Arizona area that nobody else did through his movie American Scar, which I recommend you look up. That's on Netflix, right, John?
It's on YouTube.
Oh, it's on YouTube. Okay.
Also,
American Scar.
And also on the NewYorker.com. They were the director of the documentary. They did a documentary about me doing a documentary.
Today we're going to talk about Border Patrol agents in schools, but first I want to mention that yes, there was a unfortunate accident in which, was it a CBP helicopter, Mariana, or was it a National Guard helicopter? Do we know?
So it was a Lakota helicopter, and it was one belonging to the Department of Defense National Guard, apparently. And the entire crew and operation, according to official statements, was federalized. So these National Guard from
Magic One federalized.
Right. So, the idea, well, first of all the GOP is screaming that Biden is doing nothing on the border to secure our country, to, address illegal immigration. But the official statements are that these National Guard are under Title 10 orders, which is the Military Authorization Act, and under the command of POTUS, operating on the southern border within the United States, conducting surveillance within the United States, 3 National Guard with presumably the Department of Defense and 1 Border Patrol agent in that helicopter that went down in La Grulla. And we were actually on our boat on the river Friday when we saw the smoke, but we were not that far up river to see what happened or to check it out.
Well, it's even more interesting in that there was actually a New York State police trooper on board as well. And so there's a whole mix of different authorities from different states. So unfortunately, 3 people did die in that crash. Border Patrol agent Christopher Luna. And it's my understanding that he's legacy Border Patrol, which means that he has a father, usually, sometimes a mother, but usually a father, that is also a Border Patrol agent. So the agency will be, they'll have a gigantic procession for that. And then New York Army National Guard Chief Warrant Officer 2 is what it says. I'm not sure how you say that. Casey Frankowski passed away. And then New York State Police Trooper John M. Gracia the third also passed away. And so this is unfortunate. But once again, Fox News goes out of their way. Border Bill, Mr. Bill from Fox News immediately put out some video that showed apparently some Mexican citizens on the border filming the crash. And of course, they're speaking Spanish. And Bill put it out and said, we have a video showing cartel members. He assumes they're cartel because they're Mexican, laughing at the death of our, heroes and this and that. And then he doesn't even put the video in the report. But yet, the headline is that they're all laughing at them. But they actually, if you speak Spanish, we're not laughing at them. And that's why Bill didn't put the video in. He only put still shots in. And so now they're all running around saying, They were laughing at us. But my question is really, Border Patrol and Mr. Bill, are you really surprised if it was even true that cartel would be laughing about that? I mean, you say that they don't care about anybody and they don't care about children, but yet you seem to think that they should have reverence and respect for you all. I mean, it's just ludicrous that you would say that. So you're just trying to inflame people. But the fact of the matter is they weren't laughing at the fact that people died. They were laughing saying, holy shit, can you believe what we just saw?
Yeah, they're
That's
like,
what they
oh
were saying.
fuck, oh fuck, man, look, the helicopter's going down. And they use a slang term for helicopter, which is la mosca, meaning the fly. The fly, and they're
Mhm.
like, oh my God, look at this. Shit,
Mhm.
man, holy fuck. And then they say, es un desmadre, which
Mhm.
means like, what a mess, or this
Mhm.
disaster. So
Mhm.
they are not celebrating even what sounds to people like perhaps laughter. I believe is that sort of almost a nervous, giddy response. Like you said, that shock and, oh, like, oh my
Can
God,
you believe what we're witnessing here? I mean, because how
exactly.
often do you see a helicopter just fall out of the sky? I mean, it just is, Well, I called Border Bill out on this, and of course, he just ignored me because he knows exactly what he's doing, and he does speak enough Spanish to know better. So he's just putting out lies and inflammatory commentary on this unfortunate accident. But here's the thing: the New York Army National Guard chief warrant officer wouldn't have been there, and the New York State police trooper wouldn't have been there had they not bought into this ridiculous line that the border is being overwhelmed and overrun. So, there's
Well,
that.
but they may not have any choice, if they were called up by
No,
Biden.
I know that the officers, the people themselves don't have any choice, but I'm saying that their governor sent them down there for a lie. That's what they did. Their governor sent them down there for politics, is what these three people died for, and for lies. Essentially, it's just it's gross and disgusting. But they will have a giant procession. The Border Patrol will bring out every toy they have, and they will take up everybody's day as they drive along the interstate. And if you're a smuggler in that area, that's a really good day to smuggle, let me tell you, because ain't
Yeah.
nobody going to be out there looking at the border. They're all
It-
going to be,
they're
in
all
line saluting and everything.
Yeah, they're all going to be in the procession with their lights going, as you said, hauling the ATVs and the horses out there. They'll have the helicopter land, another, helicopter land, most likely. Everyone will be there to pay tribute, and not just Border Patrol. It will
No, it'll
be
be everybody. Everybody.
every law enforcement officer, from the municipal police all the way to, Texas Rangers and DEA agents and ICE. Everybody will take the time to go participate in this and to fraternize, and then, go out
And
to
get
lunch
paid for it
together.
while
Yeah.
they're doing it and stop everybody's business and traffic and this and that. At the same time, the Border Patrol Union, it's interesting. I don't know, it's been like what, a couple days since this happened. The Border Patrol Union hasn't said anything about it on their Twitter page. I refuse to call it X, by the way, on their Twitter page. They did on their Facebook page. They said thoughts and prayers. But, the Border Patrol Union's never really given a shit about the agents. Agents in the national part of the union, they're just out there trying to get on camera and hang around politicians and do that kind of stuff. But anyhow, so I just wanted to mention that even when something horrible happens, the right-wing press and the propaganda and the Border Patrol start churning it out. And like always, it's usually a little truth, a lot of false bullshit is what it is.
Mostly bullshit. Like, I know the name of the family where this helicopter is down. It's still down. The wreckage is still sitting in their field. And
Yeah, I think they have
farmers,
to bring FAA out there or something like that to do
they're
that.
going to bring in everybody, NTSB, FAA, DOD, everybody in to surveil the wreckage and try to ascertain the cause of this
The
crash.
SET teams will be there.
The sit, and that's where I was headed. You're right, John. The sit teams will be
The
there.
illegal
Oh,
Border
they've
Patrol
already
critical
been there.
incident teams. They've already been there to cover
Oh,
up.
yeah,
They've already gotten all the fentanyl lollipops.
yeah.
So yeah, there'll be no fentanyl lollipops in this helicopter.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't want anybody to get hurt, whether they're a migrant or they're a Border Patrol agent. I just don't want anybody to get hurt. I just, yeah. And it's sad that this young woman and this state trooper and this young Border Patrol agent had to die for something that is a lie. But they will be remembered as heroes because that's what they do to the people who fight their wars and oppress people that they want them to oppress, is they turn them into heroes. So I just wanted to mention that because I think it's important to talk about that and to recognize that. But, you know, the Border Patrol will use this as much as they can. And if they can get the bereaved family out there to do some videos and stuff, they'll probably do that too. So who knows? But truth is Border Patrol Union doesn't really give a shit about its agents, and that's just the way it is.
and the public will never know what actually happened, and chances are the families of
Right.
these fallen individuals will never know what
It's
actually
deterrence
happened.
policies and deterrence policies that like killed the last two guys on ATVs. So Border Patrol doesn't like to admit that, but their deterrence policies have killed quite a few agents. But they consider that necessary. So the death of agents is necessary for the management of the Border Patrol to receive more money and more power. And that's why they continue with this. So let's get to the schools, though, because our guest is here to talk about the schools. So, John, the thing that I've been wanting to do this for a while with you, we're both pretty busy, but the thing I think that really pushed me over the limit is Chief Patrol Agent Lloyd Eastman, I believe. His last name is cut off here. This is out of Spokane, Washington. So this would be your northern sector Border Patrol chief. He states, "It is unfortunate that the Spokane Public School Board has taken this stance against Customs and Border Protection." And it's funny that he says Customs and Border Protection. That's CBP. The Border Patrol is not CBP. They're a sister agency to CBP. They're held underneath CBP. But he uses Customs and Border Protection here because I don't think most people would say that the guys in blue at the ports of entry or, you know, shouldn't be there and this and that. We want people at our ports of entry inspecting people and this and that. But a lot of people would say, a lot of people know the Border Patrol is abusive and violent and oppressive and that they get away with crimes and this and that. So he uses CBP instead of saying Border Patrol because again, I think he's just covering for the Border Patrol. They do this all the time when they don't want to mention the Border Patrol. And then he says, when agents and officers attend events at schools, they are merely there for educational purposes at the invitation of the school and not to conduct immigration enforcement activities. Agents and officers from CBP attend countless events at schools throughout the nation without controversy. CBP personnel work tirelessly day in and day out to protect our nation from a variety of threats, to include terrorist and dangerous narcotics. CBP routinely honors requests from local law enforcement agencies to assist in life-threatening situations, including active shooter incidents at schools. Our officers and agents are active members of their communities and have children who attend the schools. The fact that the school board has taken this position of intolerance against a law enforcement agency is disheartening and makes the community less safe. So I read this and I essentially hear, if you don't let us have access to your children and teach them our anti-immigrant propaganda and that we're all a bunch of heroes and teach them, you know, bring our dogs and ponies to your school, then you're intolerant of our intolerance of undocumented people. And we don't like that. John, teach us. Tell us what you have found in following all of this.
Yeah, when they say that this is under the guise of education is really, really disturbing. And what's more upsetting to me is we don't know when they have these events. I follow all of these sector chiefs and all of Border Patrol, and I gather the evidence through their own tweets. And I don't call it X either; it'll always be Twitter to me. I've been on Twitter for 15 years, so it's Twitter. Um, the problem with that narrative is, why do they have miniature bulletproof vests? Why do they bring the attack dogs to the schools with the people, an agent in padded suits, and demonstrate those dogs going after this? I guess it would be an undocumented migrant, to control, the border? Why do they have helicopters landing? Why do they have the ATVs that are all decked out? Why are they at rodeos? Why are they at career fairs? That these agents are judging science fairs for these children. These are indoctrination events. These have absolutely nothing to do with educating children, and they've been in preschools before in Nogales, at a religious, I believe it was a Catholic private school, and they were, up until recently, they didn't blur any of these children's faces. They were using it as marketing. It's marketing material is what it is. It has nothing to do with education and being a good steward of the community. That's a bunch of trash.
Well, haven't you also, you've talked to schools though and said, they're putting your kids out with their faces out.
Mhm.
And so now everybody knows that this child goes to this school and this and that. Don't you find that a problem? And didn't they tell you that, well, parents signed some kind of broad release form at the beginning of the year, allowing their children's pictures to be used in functions? But I don't know that parents necessarily know that the Border Patrol is showing up and doing this stuff. What did you find from that?
Yeah, and I've got experience. I've taught photography in schools, and I go through the whole background check, and which is great. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and I know the process, and I know that there are certain students that they said, well, if I'm documenting like an art class, or I've done stuff for a documentarian type stories that I've done, that certain children will be, they'll segment them, not to humiliate the child, but the parent, for good reasons, may, they may be going through child custody issues, or they may
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
going through other issues, and they don't want their child documented, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when I called the head of the school down in Nogales, the private school, and this was preschool, like 2-3 year olds, and the priest there, when I got him on the phone, he said, well, I had no idea that that Border Patrol had been there. And I made it very clear that these children, most likely they know somebody that's undocumented. They may be DACA children. They may born here in the United States. And they're these children are probably taught from a young age, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to, and obviously the parents, if they're undocumented, they're probably terrified.
One of the things that I notice is they really concentrate on the Latino schools and down here on the border, and so they're very heavy in the Latino schools. It's amazing that they have Border Patrol agents coming in judging science fair projects and stuff. Most Border Patrol agents barely have a high school diploma. Most of them probably have a GED. And no offense to people who have high school diplomas and just GEDs. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't need to be judging science projects. I mean, let's be honest. And this attitude that somehow just because you went through an academy and you wear a badge and a gun, that somehow you're all-knowing wise person or something, is just is just ludicrous. And this is more of this cop worship that we have going on in this country that really, I mean, we've always kind of had that, but really jumped after 9/11. And I think what gets to me the most is the miniature vest. And then of course they give them all stickers and all this kind of stuff, and they look so cool, and they bring their horses out. So if you're in preschool and kindergarten and elementary school, that's the show you get, the dog and pony show. And they'll bring out, they might bring out one of the dogs that does the bite stuff. That's disgusting and horrible to show that they sick dogs on human beings, but that's to condition these little kids to know that it's the Border Patrol agents who are protecting them, and it's the dirty brown people coming across that are trying to hurt them that might look like their parents, but we want you to understand the difference. What the Border Patrol knows, John, is that most undocumented parents do not tell their children that they are undocumented. And the reason why they do that is because it puts too much stress on them. And it also can sometimes out them accidentally. So if the little kid's at school and says, well, my dad says he's undocumented or rah, rah, rah. So, they don't want to. And so most undocumented children, a lot of DACA children will tell you, I had no idea I was undocumented until, I went to go get a job at 18 years of age. And then I realized I was undocumented. And the parents don't want the kids to grow up with that pressure. And so the Border Patrol knows that. And so the goal is to get these kids to then see themselves as more like the Border Patrol than like their parents who are at home, who could possibly be undocumented. Then when they get to the middle school and the high school years, then they start training them to be in the Explorer programs. And that's where we really start getting into teaching them that the Border Patrol way is the only way. And it's done totally because of indoctrination. I was a Border Patrol lead explorer agent, and I can't tell you how many other classmates of mine who did that job, male agents who did that job. And as soon as their little 16-year-old girls turned 18, they married them. They're marrying these girls. I have several classmates who've done this because they don't want their spouse to have been defiled by another man. That is a big thing to male Border Patrol agents. They want virgins as wives. That is a big deal to Border Patrol agents. That's part of the culture.
You're talking about the miniature vests and the dog and pony show. And I know that I sent a picture to y'all a while back of Border Patrol agents on campus dressed as Santa Claus. So, the idea that the agents are putting on a Santa costume to come into schools and have little children come sit on my knee and tell me, what are your plans for this Christmas? Oh, you and your family are going where? You want what?
You're going to Juarez.
Yeah. You need what? Oh, your house doesn't have electricity, or you don't have, whatever it may be.
Your wish this Christmas is for your dad to get his worker's permit?
Yeah. Or to be able to have a real job in this country, or, whatever it is. I mean, that blew my mind. And when
Mariana, wasn't that what, didn't you tell me that instance was they had no scheduled appointment to be at the school? They just freaking showed up.
Yeah, I reached out to a friend who is a teacher on that campus, and I said, I see the Border Patrol agent who's playing Santa Claus. And she said that was also a Border Patrol agent. And I said, well, were they doing like a toy distribution day? Like, I know our local police do. She goes, no, there was nothing like that. They just showed up. They have free roam of the campus. They are also, it was an unscheduled, appearance as far as the staff knew, but also they, as law enforcement, do not have to register when they enter the school and submit their government issued ID through the Raptor system and these other integrated online identity verification systems that, as John mentioned, will address custody disputes, or whether you're a registered sex offender or on some other watch list for felonies. Border Patrol agents don't even have to go through that when they come on to campus to interact with minors with no parental supervision, sometimes no legitimate purpose for being there other than to glad hand and gather information.
And this leads to another thing that's very upsetting. And this goes back to the BLM demonstrations. I was in Portland covering that, and was tear gas, shot with a rubber bullet in my left leg. Part of the media, and the people that were doing that type of crowd control were the VORTAC units. So here, this goes back to the 100-mile Constitution-free zone that we have in the United States, that Department of Homeland Security and Border Patrol don't have to adhere to the Fourth Amendment rights. But what you're seeing now is, and I've been in Uvalde, I've interviewed the grandparents and the brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers. What we're seeing is that the BORTAC agents are the heroes, not only in Uvalde, but the one in Michigan where they neutralized a mass shooter, and they're like, oh, it's Border Patrol. And then you see them taking a group portrait. It looked like it was somewhere in Iraq or Afghanistan. They paraded this prisoner it's sickening that they use this as their social media. Look what we did. We're doing a really great job. We're all in military fatigues, and we're heroes. And what they are is they're the world police is what they are. That's very, very frightening. And the American public doesn't seem to really care that your police officer, not your police officer, but your Border Patrol in Douglas, Arizona, has 2 ATV, armored personnel carriers, APCs. How does a little town of Douglas, Arizona have armored personnel carriers? They just sit in the back of the courthouse there at the county building. Why are we not saying there's something wrong? But we're ignorant when it comes to this. We pretend we've got freedom, and what's happening in the middle of the night is pretty scary.
And they're eliminating our right to free speech. They're eliminating our right to free assembly. They're, as you said, armed to the hilt, attacking media, attacking civilians who gather to peacefully protest. And they're doing this with armaments of war here within the United States, aimed at citizens and residents. It's, and you're right, most people don't care until it affects them.
Posse comitatus, it's
yeah, I think it's more than just Border Patrol. What we're seeing, especially when you see in New York, the crime in New York City is down. It's down across the board. And yet the mayor and the governor sit there and go, well, now we need to put National Guard in the subways. And people are walking up and just handing over their bags and saying, okay, this is what has to be done. I'm sorry, y'all, but they are getting you used to this presence. And the Border Patrol in your schools, it's not just about getting you to be anti-immigrant. It's this overall, they have 60 or 70 cop cities planned in this country. I mean, it's not going to be, they're slowly doing this. There's no reason to have all this going on. There's no reason that in the last 2 weeks, Laredo Sector Border Patrol needed to do 6, everything from elementary to college events. In every sector, what this means is you've got a staff of probably 10 to 12 agents, maybe even more, that at least a couple of times a week are going to these schools for a variety of different reasons. This is what these agents are being paid to do 24/7. But actually what they're supposed to be doing is guarding the border. And so now you know why every time the Border Patrol whines and cries about being overwhelmed, about having to process so many migrants, and they don't have anybody to process it, it's because their agents are not in the field. They are not in the field. They're in your schools indoctrinating your children. My suggestion, and I tell everybody, is you need to go down to your school and you need to tell them right away, you do not want Border Patrol in your school.
Well,
Jen, Jen, you and I have talked about this, and Marianne, you may know about it also. After the Uvalde shooting, everybody thought that this agent named Jacob Alvarado was the officer that killed the mass shooter. It was not Jacob Alvarado. However, Jacob kind of just shut his mouth and kind of took credit for it. And somebody started a GoFundMe for Jacob, and his wife was a teacher there at the elementary school, and I believe his daughter was a student also. So this guy became this hero that was the one that ran down from the barbershop with a shotgun, and that was Jacob Alvarado. But Jacob had nothing to do with killing the student. His GoFundMe, I've got it here in front of me, as of today, raised $25,558. And the narrative on the GoFundMe is that this guy was a hero, and this is going to affect him and his family for the rest of their life. And they were raising money so they could bring their children to sporting events that summer, because they didn't know if his wife would be able to go back to work, and they relied, pity, 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 poor us, while these other children were, the blood was still on the floor. And this MFer, a friend of his, and so I reported this all the way up the chain, saying, one, this violates your policies in the Department of Homeland Security. And I have audio recordings of when I talked to these sector chiefs and these PR. They still allowed this guy to raise this money. And it is absolutely sickening that the Department of Homeland Security knew this guy was making money, profiting off the death of these children.
Yeah, he's been there for a while. My understanding, he's probably making over $100,000 a year, living in Uvalde, Texas. You're rich, basically. You're doing really well. Plus, he has great health insurance. His family will have access to therapy should they need it. His wife, if she couldn't go back to work, she could get on unemployment. She could get on other assistance that's available if she needed that. Yeah, my understanding was they just wanted some money to take their kids to sporting events in other towns, like baseball games and stuff like that. So they wanted people to pay for their vacation. That's my understanding. And you're right, he did not kill the shooter, and he wasn't over there. He went directly to his wife's classroom, and he went to his child's classroom, and he saved them. My understanding is he then went back and helped save other children. But, yeah, he did a good thing. I'm glad he did it. But then to turn around and make money off of it, especially when you have people there whose children died, who could not even afford to bury their child, but you're taking donations so that you can go on vacation. I mean, it's
so that
just
you can recover from the stress of that event and the
I
ways
have
in
no doubt
which
that his child and his wife suffered stress, and I have no idea that he suffered stress. I
That's
have no
true.
doubt that he suffered stress, I should say. But that's just, it's unethical and it's immoral. But that is the Border Patrol. They're all a bunch of heroes, and everybody else can go pound sand. That's how they see it.
So Jen, every time we have these conversations, we work really hard to give our listeners information they can use to verify what we're saying, that they can go and independently do this, and better yet, often with the government's own websites and releases. So
Hmm.
we're talking about these Border Patrol agents in schools and at fun runs and rodeos, and we've even had them at the annual Texas Butterfly Festival. The
Hmm.
mayor of Mission for many years insisted that we include Border Patrol and the Explorer program. And, it actually, as you said, deterrence policies deterred people from attending the festival and intimidated
Hmm.
families who might want to come out and enjoy our free open house day from attending and participating and learning and having this great day in the outdoors in a community where we already have very limited green space and access, especially for people of low income. So I want to tell people this program is called the Community Border Liaison Program, the CBL. And you can go to the government's own websites, Google this, the CBP press room, which is what you Google, CBP press room. They will have press releases about all of the things that the CBLs are doing in your community. And I just want to read a little bit from the Rio Grande Valley Sector Community Border Liaison. The headline is Rio Grande Valley Border Community Liaison is building a strong community relationship. The U.S. Border Patrol's Rio Grande Sector Border Community Liaison Program streamlines communication between the public and the sector's chief patrol agent by engaging with our community.
Wait, stop right there. What? That's ridiculous. Between the community and the chief of the border patrol.
Well, and what
Okay,
what
whatever.
information? What communication?
What information?
And what information
Stop
are
pulling
they
us over.
communicating? Okay, so then it says they go on to conduct community outreach that is aligned under the BCL program. This includes the Explorers, which we know it's like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, where they take young people in high school and let them know you don't have to go to college. You don't have to assume any debt. You can become a Border Patrol agent and immediately start earning all this money and have authority that your community must respect. They also operate Operation Detour. And there are some really graphic and awful Border Patrol produced videos, media used as part of Operation Detour, which is a multi-level agency program designed to scare children from getting into drugs, doing illegal.
Oh, it's like the old DARE program or something like that.
Yeah, it builds upon that. They also have head of class and youth of the year scholarship opportunities.
That's true.
School and career day presentations, citizens academies, where you come in and you get all of their propaganda.
Yeah.
And much more. It's like you're right along with an agent for a day. And we already know how those work. They have some bullet points here about good things that they do. The scholarships for Youth of the Year in the Rio Grande Valley during this time, they awarded 3, $1,750 each, made possible by donations they solicited from public and private entities in our community, like Region 1 Education Service Center, which is, U.S. tax dollars going into these scholarship funds. They raised 159,684 pounds of food during the Feds Feed Families program. Now, I wonder whose homes they get to deliver that food to, and who they interact with when they're delivering.
White rich people.
Yeah, no. It says agents conducted close to 200 Red Ribbon Week, that's the DARE program, and Just Say No to Drugs presentations, influencing the lives of 68,448 students. That means they interacted with that many students. And they have made a direct impact with local youth via the Border Patrol Explorer program, with 60 events held, directly affecting 4,694 students, and 95 Operation Detour presentations led by station agents to more than 20,000 students in the hope of steering youth away from illegal activities that plague border communities. And I stopped on this because all of the FBI and other data that is reported by police agencies in border communities proves that our communities are safer and have less crime, from property crimes to homicides to rapes and other things, than communities elsewhere in the United States.
Yep. Same thing they're doing in New York. Same thing. It's the same thing that they've done down here on the border. It's so dangerous. It's so ruthless that we have to have all this militarization and all this stuff, even though they're the ones that have created all this. I mean, it just, I would encourage everybody to go to the borderpatrolwatch.com website and then go under the Border Patrol rape culture section. And then you will see how many Border Patrol agents have been arrested. And these are just the ones I can find since the year, 2000, have been arrested for pedophilia. It is insane how many Border Patrol agents are arrested for pedophilia and or rape crimes, any kind of sex crimes. And yet these agents don't have to, go through the what'd you call that
Security
system?
screenings.
Yeah, the
Um,
security.
Well, there are a variety of them. I know that our local school districts use Raptor. And
Raptor. Okay.
I know because, we've got 6 kids. I've been going
Yeah.
on campus for 25 years. And even now in my current job, if I go to do a presentation or judge a science fair, I have to be my background check and all of that done through that system with my official state issued ID.
It just, for every sector to run these things, I mean, each station has got to have 2 or 3 agents assigned to this kind of stuff. And it takes up so much time. I hated doing the explorers. I was forced to do the explorers because I was the senior ranking woman at the station at the time. And they wanted a woman in there because we had a handful of girls in there. It's funny, I recently talked to one of the girls that was one of my explorers, and she said, "I'm so glad you got out of there." She said, "It was awful. The guys were always hitting on us and this and that." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry." And I always hated it because it was like, at the time, I agreed with the policies of the Border Patrol. And I was like, if what we're doing by chasing, at the time, mostly Mexicans through the mountains is so awful that we have to go and do this performative community work in order to get people to like us, maybe we should start thinking about what we're doing. And that was one of the things that led me to be like, what we're doing is wrong. I mean, it was clear propaganda in my mind, and I could see it. And we had the Citizen Academy, and we started doing all this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to be a law enforcement officer. And yet today's Explorer programs, they actually take them to the field and they teach them the racist terms that we use. They actually let them track migrants. They actually let them engage with migrants and be around migrants and learn all the things that they're going to learn in the academy. They teach them shooting and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, it's
But
really
Jen,
a bad idea to put your kids in these programs. I'm telling you, it is a
you're,
bad idea.
part of your job, I know you're saying you didn't sign up for this, but part of your job was to recruit other females to become agents to expand the pool of women in Border Patrol upon whom they could prey. And we
Yeah,
all
I
know this
know.
happens. So they wanted to use you as the poster girl and as a lure to
Mm.
bring in other prey, which is
Mhm.
so
Which are
appalling.
my young girls in my Explorer program. And quite honestly, the only reason why I quit the Explorer program was, and I talk about it in my book, was because the management had seen that I had come out as the first Border Patrol agent, and I marched in gay pride in uniform, and they made me out myself. And I put this tiny little gay rainbow sticker on my car. And they said, agents are talking that your girls are really good looking and attractive, and I'm afraid that their parents are going to see that rainbow sticker on your car and think you're sexually assaulting these
Oh, that
teenagers.
you're
And
grooming them.
I said,
But
wait a minute, is somebody accusing me of sexual assault? And he said, no. And I said, so the men find my 16-year-old girls attractive in the Explorer program, and you're asking me about sexual assault and, impropriety and this and that. And so, I mean, I know the danger signs when I see it. So obviously, if they're already talking that way, then I'm just going to leave this because I'm not going to risk my career over this. And it was a big to do and everything. They got so mad at me for quitting, but I was like, you can't make me do this. This is volunteer. So they were really upset when I left. But
John, in documenting all that he has, to me, these things, some of which I've seen, a lot of which I have not, only through photos and talking to teachers and people like you and dealing with my own liaison, it in my mind is no different from the stuff that the cigarette manufacturers, when they had Joe Camel, it was specifically designed to appeal to youth. Like, be cool, like Joe. All you have to do is, have a cigarette, light up,
yeah,
do this pose. We're gonna give you the swag. We're gonna give you vendor wear and merchandise so you can wear it and people will know you're cool because you're sporting Joe Camel and all this.
hmm
It's the same sort of foundational grooming
hmm
that these for-profit entities were doing, which the courts and others ruled was inappropriate, dangerous,
that's a
and
really good point.
yeah, and
A
and that
really
should
good point.
absolutely. And what made me think about this was back to Spokane ISD. Their statement was that Border Patrol's work does not intersect
Mm-mm.
with the school's work.
Mhm.
And that made me think about, this Joe Camel stuff and especially with
That's
John documenting the little miniature vests.
and the majority of the agents doing this, of course, are men. And as we know, the women in the Border Patrol are not necessarily much better. John, do you keep all of this data? Are you keeping everything that they put out, bragging about how they're
Oh,
indoctrinating these children?
oh yeah. Yeah, I save every single photo and thread from Twitter, and then I have videos, I have still photographs, where these indoctrination events are happening. I mean, they've even created these. You alluded to this earlier. They've created these awards that
hmm
they'll say, oh, we recognize this valedictorian or whoever in a high school, and
hmm
they have an award from Border Patrol, that I guess they just make this stuff up and then say, hey, we want to present this, we're proud of them and
They
recognize
do make it
this.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll divert just for a second, but you're seeing it right now in real time with this young lady that was murdered. It happened. The murderer was an undocumented migrant. Um,
hmm
and my question, to Mr. Bill and Ben Berquam and Anthony Aguero, all these other quote unquote journalists, if they,
Content creators. They're
yeah,
content
yeah.
creators.
Their narrative is, look, oh, we've got an illegal alien, or whoever, however, they're calling them on that day, that is murdering people. And my first question to rebut that is, how many undocumented workers have done mass shootings? Well, none.
hmm hmm
They don't really care about the mass shooters, but they care about this one undocumented migrant that has created this horrific, and it was horrific. It's awful, and he should be prosecuted. And
Right. Right.
but let's give equal time,
hmm
to the other horrific things that are going on.
Let's give equal time to the fact that 3 Border Patrol chiefs in a year have been removed because of sexual misconduct. But we don't want to talk about that. We're not going to talk
No.
about that. I mean, the Border Patrol itself, I mean, get the fuck out of here. Are you kidding me? Those agents themselves commit more crimes than the migrants that they arrest.
Well,
Yeah.
and Spokane actually addressed story time, that Border Patrol agents were being allowed to come on campus to conduct story time with children. Now, the same crowd that has hero worship for these guys is hell bent on going after drag queens and other people who do story time. But as you just brought up, how many drag queens have raped, mutilated, and murdered people, as opposed to how many law enforcement officers or border patrol agents. I mean, and again, everything you're saying is like triggering more things in my memory bank. I talked about this book before, this Police, a Field Guide. It talks specifically about officer friendly. And we remember McGruff the crime dog and officer friendly. I'm going to read from this just a tiny part about officer friendly is an agent of pacification. His friendship comes at a price. Accept the police definition of reality and mold yourself and your family into ideal police subjects, polite, polished, obedient workers, and snitches who never question the racial order of capitalist property relations. So don't let cops read to your kids, and don't join the police basketball league. Coffee with a cop, which the city of McAllen is doing right now, is not what it sounds like. In short, don't be fooled by Officer Friendly. He is not a genuine figure of goodwill. He is a strategic ploy. And remember the first sentence in the community border liaison press release that this program is designed to streamline communications between the community with whom the liaisons interact and the chiefs of stations. These are infiltrators, these are spies, these are wolves in sheep clothing. They are they are operating, and not mostly with adults, but with children who don't have the spidey senses necessarily that adults do, or the will to say, nah, man, fuck off. I mean, thanks, but
Our
no thanks.
management used to tell us when they started having us try to do these things, and I remember they tried to have me read to kids at the elementary school up at Campo when it was slow and stuff, and I'm like, I don't have kids, I don't want to read to kids.
I think the
And
mascot should be Friendly Fred, in a big costume. Friendly Fred.
With a
well,
hard
yeah, they
on.
do have those balloons. Actually, they have a blown up balloon of a border patrol agent, and they even have little mascots that come out and this and that. And the only reason they would tell us, the only reason why we do this is because their parents can't hate us if their kids love us. And that's what they would say
Ooh.
over and over again. And even Todd Miller, in one of his books, he quoted another agent as saying that. So this is a thing that's, we know what we're doing when we do it. The male agents, the young male agents, end up having access to the girls. It's gross and it's disgusting. It is nothing more than propaganda. Nothing more than propaganda.
And
And this
grooming.
idea that, and grooming. And it was funny, I've been putting out that they're grooming kids now. And somebody wrote to me, I think it was on Blue Sky or something like that, and they said, "Oh, the guys that saved the children in Uvalde are now groomers?" Okay. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that has nothing to do with any of this. you know, it's like I always say, I've saved a lot of lives as a border patrol agent, but let me tell you, I've sent thousands to their deaths by enforcing those laws. So this idea that just because you see one thing that all border patrol agents are good people, or that they can then do, you should trust them with your child. Better not trust a border patrol agent with your child. Let us not forget, these are the men and women who gleefully took babies and children from their asylum seeking parents just simply for crossing a man-made line to ask for asylum, which is a right. Even if it's not at a port of entry, it's still a legal right according to American law. And they gleefully took their children, many of whom have never been reunited, and you're going to trust them with your kids? Get out of here. John, do you have the impression in talking to people that they're aware that their children are being engaged with by Border Patrol agents and indoctrinated by Border Patrol agents? Do you think that the parents know this when they sign up?
I would say the majority of them probably don't, but what I do is when I do find these tweets with these marketing photos I always look up the school district they're in, and then I will retweet or quote that tweet and include the the Twitter account of those school districts. And this is very, very prevalent, in Texas, California. I don't see it as much, and New Mexico really not as much, just because there's well, especially in New Mexico, there's very few towns, that would have, larger school districts. But in Texas, there's huge school districts. Arizona, with Nogales and, all that area. I always make those school districts aware of, why are you doing this? Do the parents know what's happening? And I would be willing to bet a lot of money the parents don't know exactly what's going on career days.
I
I will,
wonder too if we can look at like some of these agents arrested for pedophilia. I wonder if they acted as some of
Yeah,
these community
exactly.
liaison officers, but the Border Patrol is never going to tell us that. But I bet you they did, because you know how they
Uh,
are. They're always looking
yeah.
to be around children.
Yeah,
I,
it's a waste to even try to file a FOIA document. I've got them that are almost 3 years old, and it just says pending. Unless you have a lawyer, they don't release information. Unless you sue
Mm-hmm.
them, they will not release information.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mariana.
as a parent, I will tell you that every school year in the state of Texas, we are issued paperwork that parents have to sign. And
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to give them your social security number and declare your income and, do all this other stuff. Oh yeah.
I'm
For
sorry,
the,
I don't have children, so I have no idea.
yeah.
But what?
And I always refuse to give my social security number
It's
and
none of their business.
or my income. I would just write Minnie Mouse and make up numbers, and for my husband, Mickey Mouse and make up numbers. The school was never happy with that. Apparently, those forms are used to substantiate Title I status and the feeding programs, breakfast and lunch in our
But ICE could also get a hold of that information and check your social security
yeah,
numbers and
do you have
fucking
one or do you
assholes.
not? For the parents who don't, you have to check boxes in terms of, may we share your child's information with military recruiters? May we
Mm-hmm.
share your child's information with colleges and all these other different things? And I always put no across the board. And I will tell you that as a parent, I never, ever knew who was on campus judging science fair, for career day, doing story time, anything like that. Which means, I think, as we all agree, that at these sort of grooming and recruitment events and activities where Border Patrol is present, that was done in spite of my declaration, no, and furthermore, without any disclosure, without any transparency in that, with any foremention like, oh, tomorrow we're going to have career day. And this is a list of people who are going to be present and interacting with your child. That was never, ever, ever done.
I think there needs to be some kind of parent group or student groups that are like no BP on campus or no CBP on campus. And I think that every time that Border Patrol shows up to their campuses, they need to text their parents or whatever that's going on. And people need to get, I know you can't go on school property because they'll arrest you because they're protecting the children. And so I think, show up across the street with signs that just say no Border Patrol in our schools, no Border Patrol in our schools, no CBP in our schools. Go to the fucking border and do your goddamn jobs and quit trying to indoctrinate our children. It's going to be up to the individual communities to start doing it. I'm glad Spokane has spoken up. And I encourage everybody else to keep doing this, because those Border Patrol agents need to be out doing their jobs. If they have time to be coming to your school, talking to your kids, especially, come on, preschool and elementary and middle school, if they have time to be doing that, then obviously they aren't that busy on the border.
John, I tried to find information on this type of movement that Jen just mentioned, and information related to other school districts that might be protesting. I noticed that the Spokane ISD and the group that was working with them to get this policy passed said it had been 5 years in the making, but I couldn't find any information. Do you know which other school districts or communities across the country might be mobilizing in this way or trying to advance policies like this?
I don't know. I wish I did know. If there is an organization that somebody knows about, please let all of us know, because I would be more than willing to help document some of this stuff as it's happening. And that's another thing, is we don't know what's happened until it's happened. And that's this stuff should be, they should have a schedule of what Border Patrol is doing, publicly available. Okay, on this day, we're going to be at ABC Elementary. This day, we're going to be giving an award. And we don't know what's happening. It's all under the cover of darkness. You just don't know.
Well,
That's
and
all
there,
law enforcement sensitive information, you guys. Come on.
Right.
That's
Right.
national security.
Yeah.
yeah, it's NatSec.
One of the things that it reminds me of the most when I look at these pictures, and especially the Explorer pictures, and then I look back at the pictures of, I'm just going to say it, the Hitler Youth. It's the same pictures. It's the same kind of stuff. It's the same kind of indoctrination into things. Young kids are not equipped to understand the propaganda that these agencies are pushing on them, that they are selling them. They're selling them the CrossFit, Border Patrol, white American, Christo-fascist look. Like, we're the biggest, toughest, don't you want to be just like us? But that's just the candy coating on the outside. The reality of the U.S. Border Patrol is that its agents are arrested 5 times more than any other agency. They have massive corruption problems. They have a massive rape culture, so much so that they rape their own women as part of hazing in the United States Border Patrol. If that's what you want your kids exposed to, then have at it. But I don't think everybody else should be forced to have their kids exposed to this kind of thing.
They give the
Mhm.
explorers a uniform. They teach them the posture, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, the vocabulary, the terminology, as well as the fact that if you want instant authority and respect, even as a very young person, because you are going to have this, especially in a community that is majority minority, this is the pathway to it. And then in addition, you have all of the money, the tremendous pay, and other benefits, including the thin green line. Basically, you're given a license to behave as badly or as criminally as you want because we've got your back. And
The only kids that go into the Explorer program are Border Patrol kids, agents' kids, or kids who don't have a whole lot going on at home. And so that's who we're targeting. And then at the same time, some of these male agents are targeting those same characteristics for, unfortunately, somebody maybe they can marry as soon as they turn 18, or maybe they're going to start
yeah, or not even
a little
married.
earlier, or not even
Not-
waiting and start a little earlier. So, I mean, it's just it's astonishing. I was astonished to see Laredo sector in 6 schools within 2 weeks. That's an insane amount of time being spent on this. I mean, as a regular agent, as Explorer agent, it's like I did that maybe once every couple of weeks, or something like that. And these are full-time jobs for these agents. It's
Well,
ridiculous. Why
and they're-
even give them a gun if they're not going to do anything?
Well, because that's part of the uniform, Jen, and
It's
you know
part
that.
of it's part of the costume. It's part of the costume that they're wearing and stuff. And so I would like to start trying to, I don't know what we could do. We got to start looking into this though. But this cop worship and stuff like that. It's horrible what the Border Patrol is doing in these local schools. And the local schools are so poor and stuff that they can't, especially in Texas, because we know the way Governor Abbott is, they can't afford anything. And so if Border Patrol is going to come by and present something, I guess it gives teachers a day off or time off or whatever the deal is. But you guys, they should be outraged by this. It's gross and disgusting. It's really gross and disgusting.